So we're going to look at one of my favorite father stories in Scripture, and it helps us learn forgiveness. And so I got a little pop quiz for you because it's a well-known parable. The prodigal son story. Who were the players? Come at me. The son, the father, the brother. Who else? There's pigs. You're close. There was pigs. Who else? Moses wasn't there yet. Moses had already been a long time ago. Um, there were servants, yes, and there was a citizen. So the obvious, the younger son, the father, the older son, the servants. The citizen was the one that hired the son who left and gave him a temporary job taking care of the pig pen. Okay, all right. And so this comes from, in case you need reference, Luke 15:11 through 32. But when we look at this story, I want to look at it myotically. And when you look at any scripture myotically, you look at where do I fit into this story, each specific character. Because we fit in at some point in time in our life into each specific character. So I want to ask you to kind of dig on that a little bit to see where it is that you can identify with one of these characters. Could you perhaps have been the younger son? You've squandered all the riches and you came back tail tucked. Could you have been the father? Loving, worried about the son, forgave him, and even celebrated the return. Could you have been the older son? Bitter, angry, because little brother done took off with everything, spin it, blew it, and then he comes back and dad's giving him a party. I didn't get a party. I've been here working this whole time and I didn't get a party. Could you have been one of the servants? Are you kidding me? Two spoiled little rich kids. One comes back, gets everything they want. The other one is mad because he didn't get everything that he wanted right then. And here we are making everything wonderful for them. What about me? The pigs. Now, pigs are very, very intelligent creatures. They're very intelligent. And so I don't know that they would go back and have the full capacity to process, I should forgive somebody for something. But they do represent the consequences of hitting rock bottom. Pigs were unclean creatures. You don't eat them. They're just there. And then there is the citizen, the helper. Here's this young buckaroo down on his luck. Let's give him a job. Gave him a job. Wasn't the job that he liked. It was a humbling job. It was probably the job that he needed. Anybody ever have one of those jobs? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so in this story, was there complete freedom? No. So, not necessarily, because I think if we still hold on to bitterness and frustration, this goes for all characters in this parable. If any of the characters are holding on to bitterness and frustration, that's putting a block. It's putting a block into the way that we would shine radiantly the expression of God that we are. And a lot of times we think that the only person who needed to do any forgiving in this story was the dad. But that's not necessarily true. Perhaps the younger son needed to forgive himself. Ever have one of those humbling moments when you've done something just utterly stupid? And you're like, oh, God. And then you tell yourself, I hate it when I learn lessons the hard way. And then it's one of those repeated lessons that you don't quite get, so you get an opportunity to try again and try again and try again. And perhaps part of that process is a little bit of self-forgiveness. The father probably needed to forgive both sons, the one who left and the one that's being snarky. The older son probably needed to forgive the father and the younger son. The servants maybe needed to forgive themselves for the eye rolls of, good God, here we go. Because I do it. I've done it, been there. Because have you ever wondered if the servants might have felt jaded or dealt the wrong hand? And then maybe there's a need for forgiveness of circumstances. The citizen, maybe he needed to forgive the younger son for the walking out on the job that he was given. I gave him a job, I gave him a chance, and then he just up and left. The pigs are there, and off he goes. And then the pigs, if they had the capacity to, might have felt abandoned. Maybe. I don't know. If I was to put myself in pig slop. I know my dog feels abandoned if I don't feed her in a timely manner. And she lets me know. So, how do we get a sense of freedom for everybody in the story? Is it even possible to have a sense of forgiveness and freedom for everybody? And what actions do we need to do here? And one of the things is to acknowledge what was done. You know me, I don't like the word accept what was done. I like to acknowledge, because accept kind of leans into like it was okay. So I prefer acknowledge. And then release our judgment, our frustration, our anger at all of the parties. And then the love part, the unconditional kind of love part. Not the part, and I do it, where you've forgiven somebody, you're like, oh, I forgave them, it's in my past, and then you hear a story about something that happened to them, and you're like, oh, they got their comeuppance. Right? If we're forgiving with an unconditional love, you let it go, and you wish the highest and best for them, and you don't worry about it or them anymore. Boundaries, healthy ones. It is absolutely okay to forgive somebody for something that they've done and say, I can't talk to you anymore. I can't be around you anymore, and I wish you the best. And you don't have to have that full conversation with them either. There's some people that have done things to me that I don't even want to be in the same state with them. Right? But it is that boundary that you set. I don't have to be in that presence anymore to keep yourself safe for whatever reason. And it's to protect your highest good. If it was a forgiveness that needed your being to be safe from abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, systemic abuse, whatever that is, then you can set healthy boundaries and forgive at the same time. And then, of course, the prayer of holding the highest and best for you, for the situation, and to be able to let it go. And it isn't easy. And Scripture tells us we need to forgive how many times? Yeah. So if we do the math, that's a lot of forgiving, right? And I wonder if somebody's like, okay, that's all right, and I've forgiven this many times. I only have to forgive 2 more times. I don't think it works like that. But I'm sure somebody's thought through that process like that. And so it leads me to this poem that I found. And it is sweet and true and honest. After the rain. Forgiveness is no sudden thunder, no dramatic tearing under. It is quiet after rain. When damp earth learns to breathe again. It doesn't mean the hurt was right or turned the darkness into light. It simply breaks the bitter chain and lets the scarred over heart remain. And I think that's so important for us to realize, to acknowledge the hurt that happened, to realize that our hearts may be scarred and they're also not broken. Because we can continue to love freely and easily with the lessons that we've learned from what we might have gone through. And it's not about the other person. Forgiveness really is rarely ever about the other person. You can forgive somebody and they can not know ever that they were forgiven, or they can. But the change that's supposed to happen, the change that's important, is the change that happens within us. It allows us to not carry something that's heavy and not meant for us. It's allowed us to be able to not have something pulling us back and casting shade upon the light that we have within us. And perhaps the hardest kind of forgiveness is self-forgiveness. It's possible that the other person forgave us our error a long time ago, and we're still deep in regret over something that we did. So I have a story to tell. Back in 2007, when my Babbo, so that's my grandma, my mom's mom, fell ill to a virus, a stomach virus, C. diff, because broken kneecap. And she was not going to pull through. And in our family, my mom was medical power of attorney. I was second medical power of attorney in case mom couldn't make the decision. And I can remember going to my Babbo's bedside, and I remember keeping my knees bent, because if someone really, really close to me is in the hospital, my body decides that it might want to pass out. So I have to be very careful. And I went in to give my Babbo a hug, and she whispered in my ear, "I want to go to heaven." And then I stood back up, I found a chair, I went and I sat back down, and my brain processed, did I hear her right? Did I hear that right? Do I tell my mom? At the time, I chose not to tell my mom. And my Babbo had a surgery that was risky. Could she live longer? And it felt like my decision to not say something prolonged suffering. And I grappled with that for a long, long, long time, until I was ready to say, I'm so sorry. And if you know a little bit about me, I feel like when someone transitions to the other side, you can still talk to them. And when you hear them here, not here. And I was like, Babbo, I'm so sorry. I didn't tell mom that you were ready to go. And I hear her in the clearest voice. Why did you carry that? Why are you still carrying it? Let it go. I'm okay. I'm fine. And every once in a while, it'll still surface. And I hear her say, I'm okay. I'm fine. I love you. I always have and I always will. You know your Babbo loves you. Self-forgiveness is, to me, sometimes harder than forgiving somebody else. But when we choose to not forgive, then we choose to operate from a level of a dimmed light. Like we have the potential to shine brighter, but we don't because we have this little darkness work to do. A lot of people call it shadow work. I call it just working through your stuff, people. Just work it. So, have you ever embarked on a relationship because you've decided to, like, I don't want to make a new friend. I don't want to love again. I don't want to spend more time with somebody because I might create a relationship and I haven't forgiven myself over something. So you prevent yourself from relating to other people because you're holding on to whatever regret, whether it's your own, whether it's somebody else's. And that's what I mean by our light is dimmed. Because there may be somebody that needs to hear what you went through in life. There may be somebody that is going through something that you could say, oh, here's my story and here's where I got better. Here's my story, and when I was in it, here's how I worked through it. It allows us freedom, and the power is ours. We get to choose. So you can hold on to stuff as long as you want to. But if it's something big and you need to forgive like a piece at a time, it's okay. Because sometimes you can't carry a boulder in your pocket. Sometimes you can only chisel a little bit away, put the rock in your pocket, walk up to a stream, get the rock out of your pocket, and see if it'll skip as you send it on its happy way. Because sometimes forgiveness takes a minute. Sometimes it takes a while. And on these all levels of forgiveness, how do we reach to that point to where we're able to forgive? Where did I put it? Here it is. And so this is where this comes in, y'all. And I just have to share that I picked the black Play-Doh because when I was little, I didn't make black Play-Doh. Now I could play with black Play-Doh. 1970 something, there was no black Play-Doh. But I can tell you, if you raised a child and feel free to get it out and play with it while I'm talking. If you raised a child in the 70s or 80s when the carpet didn't look like this and it was shag carpet and your child would play with Play-Doh on the carpet, forgiveness. Or lesson learned, I'm going to future plan and the kid's going to play with it in the kitchen at the kitchen table. But I couldn't think of anything better. And for Mother's Day, we went to our inner child and we used some crayons. For Father's Day, we're going to our inner child and we're going to use a little bit of Play-Doh. Because to me, Play-Doh allows us a very kinetic, energy moving way to find forgiveness. If you're still angry, and I could tell you, this was one of the neatest things when I was teaching early childhood. I had a veteran teacher across the hall from me. She was retired from teaching public school and loved teaching so much that she taught in a daycare after that. And she said, so you want to know what you do with a kid who decides they need to hit because they're mad? Everybody's like, time out, redirect. And she goes, you let them hit. So she had a block of clay in her room. And if somebody hit somebody else, she would go, come over here. And you, as long as you need to do it, you do it. Because then, well, eventually your hand gets tired and it starts hurting a little bit. And she didn't use a soft, squishy Play-Doh. She had like clay. Clay. But it sooner or later gets malleable. Sooner or later, your bitterness, your anger, your resentment, your fear gets malleable. And from there, you can decide what you want to make. You can make a wall. Because if you need to, you might need to make some boundaries of some protection. And some of these walls have no gates. Somebody hurts you bad enough, you can love them in the freedom of forgiveness, and you can create your wall that doesn't have gates. Or if it's someone who hurt you and it's a mendable one, and it doesn't, if the forgiveness won't cause a possibility of you getting hurt in a very bad way, and I'm talking abusive way again, then maybe you put a gate in there, and you could choose. You want to open the gate, shut the gate, have it open from both sides, only open till you have a lock on your side, and you can let people in when you want to. So you could choose to build a wall with your Play-Doh, or you can choose. See how fast I can do it. Squish, squish. Big, big. Tail. All right. Beak. Pew. You could choose to make a bird or a plane. Because sometimes when we forgive, sometimes we need an aerial view. Is it safe to dive down? Is it okay to nest here? It gives us perspective in this way that we can choose to maybe bird or plane forgiveness. You can choose if you want to. This is going to be the funniest looking flower I've ever made in my entire life. It's more like a funnel now. I don't have time to make a whole bunch of petals. Imagine there's a whole bunch of petals, and this is a beautiful Gothic rose. It's your emo rose. Because it could be one of those relationships that's so important to you that you know once the forgiveness work is done, it will bloom again. Forgiveness is malleable. And you may want to make a bowl. Because sometimes everything is still raw and rough, and we're scared, and a lot of times rightfully so. So you may just want to hold a vessel that's a bowl and just say, God, I'm open to move through this process of forgiveness, because a lot of times with that, you're experiencing grief as well. I don't know anybody that's been hurt that hadn't grieved. It's part of the process. And so you can choose to hold your bowl as long as you want. You can also, and I don't recommend this one, choose to keep it wadded, and you can just set it out there, and you can let it do what? Dry out and get hard. Because then, if it dries out and gets hard, it's going to get harder to mend again. I mean, could you technically probably get a piece of hard Play-Doh and make it soft again? Probably. Throw it in a blender, grind it back down to dust, add water, and you're good to go. But it takes longer. It's probably a lot more painful. And so with this Play-Doh, it allows you a hands-on way to work through what you need to work through. And you can mold anything you want to make when you choose to forgive. And in the lesson of, my hands were clean before I started this, but now it looks like I've done all kinds of weird stuff with my fingers because I got dirt, Play-Doh in them. But give yourself the freedom. Keep your Play-Doh. We have extras. That'll go to the YFM room. But let it be a reminder that sometimes our inner child needs to come and be present for our grown-up self to remind us what it was like to forgive as a kid. Because I could tell you, my sister and I would get into some arguments. Truly. And oddly enough, we're a very close sibling unit. Oddly close. I tease and say that we were twins, and Sarah was born 3 years late. We're that close. But my mom would do this interesting thing with us when we would fight. Come here, girls, and she would get a sheet, whether it was folded or not, and she would unfold it, and she's like, y'all need to fold that sheet. And by the time we got done folding the sheet, we were either laughing and making the sheet a tent or a cape or whatever, but we had mended by the time we got through folding that sheet. Good job, Mom. So by the time I am a grown-up, you may hear me say when there's something frustrating and there's grown-ups going at it, I will say, I'm going to make you fold sheets if you can't work this out. And then I'll have to tell the story. But sometimes we need to allow our inner child, the one that was like, playing was more fun than arguing. For me, it was realizing, because we moved a lot, this was my best friend that was always going to be there because she moved where I went. Wherever I go, she goes. And not all sibling groups are like stay that close, and some of it's bittersweet. And so with your clay, decide how it's going to be. Walls, because some needs walls. There's not every sibling relationship is perfect. Bird or plane, flower, bowl, and with any relationship, because when we choose to do the forgiveness work, when we choose to allow the malleability of something that can make us be callous and hard and harsh, then we are allowed to shine the brightest that we could possibly shine. And with that, I say shine on, y'all.